Do you feel you were born for more? Get ready to uncover your God-given purpose so you can impact the world with your gifts, your talents, and your story. Welcome to our Purpose Power Summit. I'm your host, Mimika Cooney, and today's guest is going to talk about how to identify the message of your heart. Rachel Starr Thomson is in love with Jesus and convinced the gospel will change the world. A speaker and spoken word artist with 111 Ministries, Rachel leads audiences worldwide in exploring the depths of biblical truth. She's the author of the Seventh World Trilogy, The Oneness Cycle, and many other books. Her blog, Revelatory Creative, shares studies and stories to help believers discover the kingdom of God. So welcome, Rachel. I'm so excited to have you on the summit. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, I'm super glad that we're able to connect because you are such a busy lady trying to track you down when you're not traveling or speaking or going somewhere. So you are actually in the same state as I am, not too far away. But
I am just about an hour away.
I know, right? But we made it work. We've got it here. And I'm so excited to hear about the content you have to share because you've really got an epic journey to share with our audience.
Yes, I do.
Before we get into the content of the tips, because she's going to give you a lot of tips to discover the message of your heart. Tell us about your story and how you got to do what you're doing today.
That started all the way really back when I was a kid. I was raised in a very unconventional lifestyle. My parents had 12 kids. I'm the oldest. And they homeschooled us and we moved all over. We lived in different parts of North America at different times. And I like to joke that we had an unconventional homeschooling method. And I like to say that basically my dad had about 2,000 books in the house. And they just taught us to read and said, okay, go educate yourself. That's more or less what happened. And for me, I'm a very natural reader. And so I had read hundreds of books by the time I was probably 12 years old. And so I just very naturally started writing. I had a rich imagination, rich inner life, even as a kid. And so I started writing stories, writing fiction particularly. And then when I got into my teens, I really fell in love with Jesus. I had an encounter with God that really changed everything for me. And so I started to use my writing to express my faith and explore my faith. But, at that time, I felt a real disconnect between what I was gifted to do and the idea of serving God, because I had a very narrow concept of what it meant to serve God. And I felt like serving God means doing one-on-one ministry with people, like counseling kinds of things, or it means meeting physical needs, feeding the hungry and that sort of thing. So I couldn't see a lot of value in what I did, which was sit in a bedroom and make stuff up, right? So I had this cognitive disconnect for a long time between what I really wanted to do, which was serve God, and what I was gifted to do, which was write. And later realized also that I was gifted to speak, but that took a long time to come together. So, all through my teens, my 20s, that was kind of a struggle and this journey. And I had to give myself permission at one point to just go ahead and write, even if I couldn't see ministry value in it, because kind of that parable of the talents idea, I knew that God had gifted me to do this and I needed to do something with it. And I didn't know where that was going to go or what God would have me do with it, but I just knew I had to be faithful to keep doing it. And then really, it was probably around 2013, 2014 that it clicked into place. And I really began to understand that my writing could have an impact on people and that it could express the heart of God. And even that I had already been doing that with my fiction it wasn't intentional. It's just that's who I am. I'm always exploring my faith. I'm always wanting to go deeper with it. So that came out even in the fiction I was writing. So you alluded earlier to me having an epic journey, and the really crazy part of that was September 2014. And what happened in September 2014 is I went out shopping with my sister and I dropped dead in a parking lot. Nobody saw it coming. My heart just stopped. So I don't have a heart condition. There had never been anything prior to that. And they never found it. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital going through every test that they could come up with. And there is no heart condition. But for some unexplained reason, I had this cardiac arrest. So God really provided. He actually sent a cardiac nurse into the parking lot at the moment that I was collapsing. She pulled in and saw me go down. So she ran over, started CPR immediately. I was technically dead for 12 minutes, which is pretty crazy.
Wow.
Before the ambulance got there and defibrillated. And restarted my heart and everything. So I woke up the next day in the hospital pretty disoriented, and, 3 weeks of testing and all of that, and kind of figuring out in my own brain what had actually happened. Turns out dying is quite disorienting.
I can imagine, right? It kind of throw you off a little where you
it does a little
especially
bit.
the mental thing, like 1 minute I'm in the store, the next minute I'm like, hey, who are these weird people?
Yeah, exactly. Why am I in the hospital, and why does everyone look concerned, and why is everybody crying and telling me they're glad that I'm still here?
And you have no memory while you were unconscious?
I have very few memories of that day. I have very, very sketchy memories of going out that morning, but just barely. So I can't, it happened around 3:00 in the afternoon, and I can't remember most of the day. So one thing though that came out of that is I really just got clear on what I really want to do with my life. I really need to and want to be teaching the Bible. That's kind of ultimately what I'm gifted to be doing. And that's what I want to do. And that kind of moment of clarity has shaped what I've done since then. And it helped me kind of bring everything I did, because I do all these different things. I write fiction. I travel. I'm a spoken word artist with a performing arts group. I speak in church. I do all these different things, but really that clarity that, what I'm really gifted to do is just really to help people understand the scripture. And then I was able to pull that all together and to have this central focus. And that has really helped me to get traction and to know where I'm going.
So kind of like you feel like there were these breadcrumbs along your life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And especially for us creative types, it's like it can be frustrating because everyone's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, I don't know. I have a lot of interests. How
Everything.
Nail it down. And it can be hard because, and for myself as well, I've had the same experience where you kind of like, what is that one thing that I can put my flag in the sand and say that I do? But, and especially when you have a heart for the Lord, like I'm coming from the same, similar but different angle in that I've been working in business and trying to pull those pieces. So I love how you've been able to put those pieces in those life experiences, and you realize, I'm sure, after your heart incident that, it's important that you do what is in your heart, literally, that you have to be directed by your heart.
Yeah.
So, and I think that you got some great tips. So give our audience a little bit of a walk through the process, because we really want to discern, how do we get those pieces, that message that's within our heart. I mean, did you identify, like, were there some recurrent feelings and sort of thought process and sort of signs that were coming along that you kind of ignored, or how did you find that step?
One of the big things in identifying what your heart message, your core message really is looking at what it is that you do, what it is that you teach that actually bears fruit, which is, it's kind of a backwards way to think about it. Because for me, normally, I tend to want to go inward and look at, what really matters to me and delve down into that. But what helped me get clarity was understanding what is it that everyone else says makes an impact on them and makes a difference to them. And then when I got clear on that, I realized, people ask me all the time about the Bible. People come to me with questions about it. People tell me that, whatever conversation we had or whatever I wrote really changed their perspective. And realizing that's where all the fruit is for me. It's all in this writing about and speaking about and explaining the things that I see in scripture and teaching people these perspectives and these approaches. When I realized that's where all the fruit is, I also realized this is actually what I'm passionate about and what I wanted to do. But somehow I couldn't get clear on that until I saw kind of externally where the impact was.
So kind of, would you say that, like, it's one of those things that you just love to talk about for free, right? No, it's not like you had to think I was working on it. It was more like,
right,
you in the coffee shop, or you meet a friend at the gym, and then it's just things that you just can't, just bubbles up out of you. And I think for a lot of us, we kind of discount those things. Wouldn't you say that there's
absolutely we do,
but we don't really listen?
We tend to not credit, I think, the things that we are really actually expert in because it's so natural to us. So it feels like if it was really important, if it was really significant, then it should feel hard. But those things that we would just talk about until everybody's sick of it and they don't want to listen to us anymore. The stuff that I'm not married, but I live with a roommate. So the stuff that I like ambush her with first thing in the morning, hey, I was thinking about this and what do you think? It's always this Bible stuff for me. And that's the stuff that's really coming out of your heart. That's your core message.
So kind of like the things that you want to just talk about without you feeling like it's strange. So how would we identify, looking back at your life? Obviously hindsight's 2020, right? And once we want to connect the dots and
Yes,
see the breadcrumbs.
exactly.
How did you put the pieces together? So
Exactly.
you feel like you had this calling, you like to write, what were the steps that you took in order to really bring everything together?
To bring everything together. So basically, I kind of see 3 steps in this. So there is that identification piece, which really there's an internal component to that and an external component. So there is asking, where is the fruit? What are people actually responding to? What makes a difference? And then there is, what do I think about obsessively? What do I talk about obsessively? What do I obviously care about a lot, even if I don't necessarily acknowledge it? So putting those pieces together, that's kind of your identification piece. And then you've got this clarification piece. And that's kind of where a lot of those breadcrumbs come in. And I wish I could say that we could skip this part, that we didn't have to go through a clarification process. But it is a process. I think it's a journey. And I actually don't think that we can just shortcut it or short circuit it. There's things that can help us along, certainly. But I think the clarification piece is a lot of trying things out. It's seeing what works, what doesn't. It's seeing what you stay interested in and what you don't. For creative types, I think we have so many ideas and they all sound fabulous when we first come up with them, but so many of them 2 days into it, I'm like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't care about this. This is not what I'm passionate about. Having to go that journey, having to try different things, that all comes into that clarification piece. And then, putting things out in the world and seeing what resonates with people. Again, being open to that external feedback as well and asking, where is that fruit? And then the third piece really is communicating it and learning to communicate it. And I don't have this nailed down by any means. I'm forever changing my taglines, changing how I describe what I do. But for me, it really is learning how to connect what I'm passionate about with an audience. And the nice thing is those two things go together, because I used to always hear, oh, you have to identify your audience. And I was like, well, I don't know who my audience is. I write weird fantasy Christian fiction. Like, who reads that? I don't know. Grandmothers, 12-year-olds. I don't know. But realizing that when you identify your message, you kind of are identifying your audience, because your audience is the people who need that message. So whatever it is that's coming out of your heart, your audience is the people who need that. So for some folks, that's very obvious. Like if your heart message really is something for young mothers, then your audience is young mothers. For me, it's people of all ages and stages who like weird fantasy fiction or who want to go deeper on the scriptures, right? And those pieces come together for me in odd ways. But so that third piece of communicating is really just looking to see, who am I talking to and how can I clearly communicate to them what I have to offer?
And I love that part where you said, you just got to try things. It's kind of like trying on a pair of shoes. Like if you want to walk your path, you've got to try on shoes that fit your journey, right? And sometimes it means trying and failing, which isn't a bad thing. And I think a lot of us get sort of caught up in this, like, what if I don't come up with it perfect? Right. And yep. I'm a recovering perfectionist, so I'm sorry. I've had to learn this the hard way. So yes, and sometimes it's exercising that and feeling like as you get feedback and then you start to hear, because I think a lot of us, the creatives think we're like an island to themselves. And if I'm interested in this, everyone is. But then sometimes it's something else that takes an interest. Yep. So like with what you're doing now and in terms of what you're writing and talking about, do you find like, what are the other things that you've done in terms of like really getting traction? Has it been, because now you're at a convention, right? Or you said you're away for a retreat?
Actually, I'm with a couple of girls who I do ministry with. So the 3 of us are 111 Ministries, and it's my friends Mercy and Carolyn and myself. And we travel around the world. We do performing arts together. Mercy and I preach. It's always a mixed basket, the stuff that we do. We really don't limit ourselves to only one art form or style of communication. But the heart message always stays the same, right? So we're actually here together writing a book over the next couple of weeks. So it's been a fun journey so far.
Well, that's awesome. And I love how you also talk about having support, because I think that's another thing is you're not doing this by yourself. You're doing it like, okay, I need to write a book and I'm busy writing a book too. And I know the accountability can be like, I need to get this done and things happen. But having people who are on the same mindset, the same wavelength, who are there to support you And
Absolutely.
with your journey, I think is vital.
It is. It absolutely is. It's, it's interesting, but when I look back again, breadcrumbs and 2029, you don't see significant things until you walk through them usually. But one thing that has been significant for me in getting traction is that in the last 3-4 years, I connected with a church community that has been really just incredibly supportive, incredibly amazing at calling out my giftings and believing in me and even just practically supporting. And if they weren't there, I don't think I would be where I am right now. And there's no direct connection. They're not working in my ministry. But if I didn't have that community, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now.
Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you. What's the best place to find you if they want to connect?
Best place to go is my website. So it's rachelstarrthomson.com. It's Rachel with an EL and Star with 2 R's and Thompson with no P, just so that no one will ever spell it correctly the first time. But rachelstarrthomson.com. If you go there, you can get a free book from me on the Lord's Prayer. You can also get a couple of free novels if you're interested in that. And yeah, it's the best way to stay in touch. My email list is where I stay the most in touch and the most personal with folks. And you can get on that by getting one of those free books. So if you're interested in that, do it. I'm also on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Rachel Starr Thomson Writer, and on Twitter and YouTube, and you can find me. But Facebook and my website are the best.
That's where you hang out the most. And we'll have all the links below this video. So if you're watching, if you've enjoyed what Rachel has had to share today, go ahead and share it with your friends. You never know. There is somebody out there who needs to hear what she has to say. So make sure to click the share button below and do that now. And, make sure to reach out to Rachel as well online, connect with her, tell her you saw her on the summit. We'd love to hear your feedback. If you use the worksheet, any aha moments, get in contact. We'd love to have the conversation going because, as we've said, you need a community, you need to connect with people in order for this to really work. So I'm going to say thanks so much for joining me here today. And I appreciate you making time in your schedule. And I look forward to hopefully meeting up with you in person sometime soon.
And that would be great.
Well, thanks again, everyone. Until next time, take care. If you want more free resources that we only share with our newsletter community, go to mimikacooney.com and sign up today. We have great resources like ebooks, inspirational screensavers, printables, and exclusive access to our community.